Hi, everybody. Welcome to On Deck. My name is Ten, and I'm a third generation tarot reader, a writer, and a mentor with the Center for Creative Writing. We are currently working our way through the major arcana of the tarot and lining up the Fool's journey with the narrative arc for our main character. And just for reference, if this is your first time listening, I often line up these major arcana cards and the narrative arc with the Save the Cat beat sheet. I find that it lines up pretty well as we're working through the major arcana and kind of our narrative arc. So that being said, this month is our death card. That's the card for this month. And normally when I'm doing a tarot reading for somebody, I'm quick to say that when you get the death card in your tarot reading, it doesn't mean that someone's going to die. It's not a literal representation. These are all metaphors. And generally it just means like an ending, something is coming to an end and a new beginning. Usually you can see here, there's like a sunrise in the back, and like, this just means that something's coming to an end and we're ready for a new beginning. However, when we're taking a look at the narrative arc and we're working our way through kind of the trials and tribulations that our main character is going through before we reach, the big bad, battle, whatever that is. Sometimes there's what they call in the Save the Cat beat sheet as the whiff of death, right? So as we're moving through the story, we have to keep like upping the stakes so that our character is facing challenges, and that helps their evolution, right? Your character has to grow. Your character can't be the same in the end as they were in the beginning, right? So we have this term called the whiff of death, where they get into a life-threatening situation, or one of their sidekick or their love interest or somebody really important to them, their mentor, right, gets into a situation where they die or they almost die, and that kind of ups the stakes. It makes the main character kind of change perspective, or, understand how serious the situation is. Or this could also kind of kick off like a dark night of the soul, where they have to kind of reevaluate who they are. So in our kind of narrative arc, the death card is going to indicate that there needs to be some kind of very high stakes situation that could, cause the end of one of the characters. A lot of times you'll see like the best friend dies or the mentor dies. I don't know why I keep thinking of Star Wars, but this is like, when Obi-Wan gets, lightsabered by Darth Vader. And that's witnessed, and that was kind of Luke's mentor. And so that kind of makes the journey more personal. Maybe there's some kind of avenging happening or something like that. So that's kind of what the death card is going to represent as you are working through the narrative arc. So let's kind of come up with a situation for our main character regarding the whiff of death, or, like I said, maybe somebody actually does die. Maybe they're injured, they're in a coma, whatever. They can't continue the journey, so the main character has to go it alone for both of them. Whatever it is. Let's kind of find out what our main character might be going through for this scene. So there's a little writing prompt for this scene. Okay. All right, so we have the Knight of Rods, Make sure we got these in here. Okay, the Knight of Cups and the Justice card. I'm going to scooch that guy out of the way. So in this situation, this writing prompt is going to involve two characters, right? So the Knight of Wands, the Knight of Rods is somebody who is very charismatic, ready to go, you know, maybe not the most like intellectual, though they are, you know, they can be smart. They're not based in logic or strategy. They kind of work on vibes, right? So we have this character who is ready to go. Usually it's like the friendly, charming, kind of debonair sidekick who is just, you know, flirting and romancing all the women or the men. That's kind of the energy of the Knight of Rods. The Knight of Cups would be more of the, like, in terms of characters, like a romantic, you know, I don't want to say fool, but like the romantic, the one, you know, who loves being in love and falls in love every day and writes, you know, heartfelt, wrought poetry, you know, for a different love interest every day. Probably like sings or plays an instrument or something, has some kind of talent that expresses their emotions. They're like really deep in their feelings. And their journey as a knight is like exploring all these feelings and learning what love is, and that, you know, being in love with love is different than being in love. So we have these two characters, and these could be characters that you have developed. These could be new characters that come in. One of these characters might sound like your main character. Okay, so we have this situation where one of these characters has this whiff of death, and it has to do with justice, the law. So I want you to write a scene where one of these two characters is maybe a little bit morally gray and has done some questionable things, and there is some kind of law enforcement coming after them that puts them in a situation of life or death or bodily injury, or they almost die. They get, you know, almost get caught and escape by the skin of their teeth. Okay, so whatever fits in maybe with your narrative, or if this is your first time catching this and this is where you're starting, you know, you could just write this little scene. Think about two characters, one that is, you know, very outgoing, very charismatic, very, you know, goes on vibes and just wants to have a good time, and the other one who is very deep and serious and emotional, and romantic in the way of like the romantic poets, and they happen into a situation where this it could become fatal. There's a challenge, there's a duel, there's a misunderstanding, there's a some kind of activity that happened in the past catching up with them. Okay. All right, so that is the prompt for this month. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll talk to you again next month.